Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel and welcome to Stretch the Sketch. This is our monthly series we do the third Sunday of every month where we take a sketch and we stretch it or shrink it. So the idea is we have a 12 by 12 sketch and you can't do a 12 by 12. Anything smaller, anything larger will work. I am going to work on a double page today and I don't know what I was thinking when I chose this sketch, but it's got a lot of triangles on it, and the triangles are my nemesis. I don't know, maybe I was feeling like I needed a challenge when I chose this, and I actually sent an apology to everybody on the team going, if you are someone who hates triangles, my sincerest apologies. I have no idea what I was thinking, but yeah, it was a little bit difficult for me. I struggled with it for a bit, but I started by taking all of the papers that were left over from my Kit Conspiracy kits and finding ones that went well with some outdoorsy photos that I've got going on, campfire photos. And then I decided to go ahead and pull out these triangular dies from Paper Rose and just started cutting the largest ones that I could with the paper that I had available, and wherever I just had little bits and pieces, I went ahead and cut some smaller ones to kind of fit in there. I didn't want them to actually be a uniform size, even though on the sketch they are a uniform size. And then I was playing with going diagonally just like it does on the sketch, but I found that the angle going across the page diagonally, a single page, the angle works a lot better than going across a double page. It just doesn't look right because everything's kind of like off kilter. And then I put my photos down and it covers everything. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take those triangles and do something a bit different with them. Instead of going across the page in this way, I'm going to go ahead and line them up on some white paper and then create a strip on each side. Now I do end up backing my photos with this striped paper in the same format as I had them laid out, although I didn't realize in this particular one that the vertical photo actually needs to be on the left hand side of the two horizontal photos. I mounted it incorrectly, so you'll see later that I just go and have to flip those around. Luckily they're the two horizontal ones are the same size and everything, so I'm able to just like take everything off and flip them over. Now I'm doing the same thing with the other side of the page. This particular set will be on the right page. The other set is going to be on the left hand page. And the photos are of some of the girls in my Girl Scout troop camping, and they're sitting around the campfire in the morning. We actually really enjoy making biscuits on a stick, and this is something my mom taught me, and we did it all growing up my life, and so I just carried that tradition on with my Girl Scouts. But you just use Bisquick, mix it up, and you use wooden dowels, like, I don't know, maybe 1 inch or 3/4 inch thick. You soak them in water overnight, and then the next morning when you get up, you make your Bisquick and you mold it around the end of the dowel, and then you hold it over the coals of the campfire. Now the campfire can't be roaring with flames, but you want that heat of the coals, and it will bake that Bisquick. And then it slides off the end of the dowel really easily, and you can shove some butter or jam inside, or honey, or whatever it is that you like to have on your biscuits, and that is part of breakfast. So that, and then maybe we cook up some sausage or eggs or bacon or something like that. And it is kind of fun, gives everyone something to do in the morning while the rest of breakfast is getting made. And it's kind of a sweet treat because you get to put whatever you want in it. So all kinds of fun. And you get to cook it as long as you want to, you know, like if you want yours a little doughy, which some of my girls like that doughy texture, that's okay too. So I decided I'm going to take this white piece of paper. I'm lining up my triangles on either side of it, the top and the bottom there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a strip from each side, and it's going to end up going vertically on the two outer edges of my entire layout. But right now I'm just playing with where those triangles are going to end up. I am going to ink every single one of them with some Black Soot Distress ink just to kind of finish them off. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't duplicate the patterns like right next to each other. I want kind of a variation of pattern, a good mix, and I want those colors to be kind of represented in more than one place, not just like one big bunch of orange and then the rest of it is the other colors. So spreading them out and cutting them in some smaller sizes really helped with that, because I could bring in little pops here and there. I am using just my ATG gun to go ahead and adhere those. That makes it really easy, so I can move them around if I decide I want to like mess around with what pattern is in what spot, or if I don't get the placement just right, or as you see here, I might want to make I might want to swap out one of the triangles for a larger size or something like that. You know, triangles are interesting because they work great when they're all the same size, but when they're not the same size, it can be a little tricky getting them placed properly so that there aren't really big gaps between them. And so, yeah, that makes it a little bit more on the tricky side. And that's always my battle with these triangles. And I always feel like, you know, their lines are really straight, and so you you want to get them lined up perfectly, but they don't line up perfectly when they're not all the same size. As you can see, the tip of the brown one that I just had put in there kind of goes down further into the point of the striped one than the other ones do, and that's because I have a small one next to it. But you know what, it is what it is. It looks good at the end and I'm happy with the layout, but it does take me quite a while to kind of play with it, and I don't know why that is, but triangles seem to be my nemesis. So like I said, I must have been wanting a good challenge the day I chose that sketch, because that is not something I normally go for. And I know I'm not the only one who struggles with triangles, so hopefully the rest of the people who are playing along with Stretch the Sketch are not struggling as much as I am. So I've just about got those all lined up, and then I'm going to ink them and go ahead and glue those ones down. And here again, I'm playing with which ones or which patterns are in which spots, because I want to make sure I have the patterns kind of like evenly dispersed, even though they're not like every third one is a stripe, or every second one is a orange or something like that. I don't want them like so perfectly dispersed, but I want the colors dispersed randomly enough so that they are represented in multiple areas. Now, I didn't make you sit through watching me glue them all down. You kind of saw how I went about doing the placement. And then I'm just trimming off the edges that are sticking out over the outside of the white sheet of paper. It is a lot easier to do that by flipping the paper over, because you can kind of see exactly where it lines up. But and then I'm going to fill in a couple of these little white spaces with the extra pieces that I have. And then I'll trim those off as well. I don't know if I actually worry too much about these ones down here. I guess I do put a couple of these in, so when I do trim it, that there are a couple of colors there, because I don't really know how wide I'm going to make my vertical strips. I end up making one of them like 3 inches, and one I think is about 2.5 inches. But at this point, I hadn't really even thought about how wide I was going to make them until I go to cut it, and then I'm like, okay, well, how wide can I make it so that there's not like a big swatch of white paper showing. So that is what I end up with. Now I am going to add a little bit of fiber underneath each one of those. I have this roll of, I don't know what this is actually called. I'm just going to call it fiber. But I am going to cut it down the middle, and I'm going to use it on both sides of each one of these vertical strips. I was having trouble with my ATG gun, and I don't know what's wrong with it, but the tape keeps jamming up on it, and so it took me a little bit longer than it normally would to do this. So I ended up cutting out some of that, so you don't have to sit there watching me fiddle around with my ATG gun. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it. But there's my fiber added to it, and then I thought I'd go all the way across the bottom, but then I realized that the strip on the right hand side is not as wide as the strip on the left hand side, so it wouldn't look like one solid piece going across. So that's when I decide I'm going to go vertically instead of horizontally, and that works out just fine. I don't make you sit through watching me glue this other one down. I just used my ATG gun. You saw me do that on the other page, and so I'm not going to make you to watch it again. And then I use my ATG gun just to adhere everything to the background paper. Now that background paper is from the Cocoa Vanilla No Limits, and the other papers that are creating all of those triangles are either from the Simple Stories Vintage Lakeside or the Simple Vintage Farmhouse. And those were, like I said, all leftovers from my Kit Conspiracy stuff. Now I did pop everything up onto foam. The little edges that are not popped up is because it's going over that fiber, and that was the reason that I ended up popping the rest of it up, is because the fiber added a little bit too much lift and it was making my photos a little wonky. So in order to do that, I just lifted up the pieces that were sinking down, if you will, and gave that a little bit of support so it doesn't look funky. And then I pulled out some of my wood pieces from MK's shop, and I've had these in my stash a while, so I'm super happy to use them. I really like the Let's Get Toasted and the little marshmallow with the fire. Now we're not doing marshmallows, but we are doing the biscuits, and I think that works out fine. And I'm pulling out a couple of little phrase chipboard pieces from Cocoa Vanilla's No Limits. Again, more leftovers from that same kit that I used for Kit Conspiracy. I also really like the tent and the trees because we were camping at this location. And then I just pulled out a couple of dragonflies to bring up to that upper right or left-hand page. And I'm keeping it pretty simple. That is pretty much it for my embellishments, you guys. I'm not doing a lot more, but I am going to go ahead and do my journaling, and I do that on screen for a bit just so you can see what I end up doing. I'm going to pull out my typewriter and I'm going to type up some strips. Now a lot of times I don't pull out the typewriter, I just will handwrite and then cut strips of paper to do the this technique of writing. But in this case I pulled out my vintage typewriter, typed it up. I am having a little bit of trouble with it. I want to have this serviced. I haven't had it, I don't know, I've had it maybe about a year, but it works. But if I type too fast, it gets jammed up. So it looks like I do a little bit of hunt and peck there, but I actually do know how to type, just not just on this typewriter. It, you know, I'm faster on a computer, but the typewriter kind of gets jammed up. And my tape, the typewriter tape was staying up. It wasn't like dropping down with every stroke. So I don't know what that's about, but that's the part that I need to get serviced. So in the meantime, I went ahead and typed this up. And you know, if you make a mistake, I don't think it's a big deal. I just like double space and then keep typing the word that I made the mistake on. I'll just start it over because that's the part I'm going to cut anyway, and it looks fine because I'm cutting these word strips into smaller bits and pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a whole line of text. If I make a mistake, I just, you know, space 2 or 3 times so that I can cut the mistake out and then start over, and it's not a big deal. And part of that is I did have a couple of mistakes because I couldn't see what I was typing because my typewriter tape, like I said, was staying up, and I couldn't see if it was actually making an imprint or not. And so that's what was happening there. And then, you know, you can always cut bits and pieces apart to kind of spread them apart here and make it so that they fit your space. And I feel like it looks kind of natural, or it doesn't look forced, like, you know, everything is the exact same length. and I like the way that it looks. So that is how I did my journaling on here, and it basically just told about the making the biscuits on a stick. And then in one of the photos, or in two of the photos, the girl on the far right photo, you may notice she has some goggles on. She's actually wearing swim goggles, and she was getting very frustrated because the smoke was following her, and so she went and put swim goggles on so she wouldn't have smoke in her eyes. And so I just tell that little story as well. And that is it, you guys. There are a bunch of people playing along down below. So go and check out their links and see what they have for you today for Stretch to Sketch. I can't wait to see how everybody else used these triangles, and I hope that you enjoyed this series. And come back again next month and check out what we have for you then. See you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.